Before today's talk, we asked you to send in any questions that you have about job interviews. Talking to us today, we have Sophie Young, founder and CEO of Dream Big, an internationally successful recruitment company. With a university degree in psychology and 15 years' experience in human resources, she knows exactly how best to tackle those awkward interview moments. Please welcome her with a round of applause.
Hello everyone, and thank you for being here today. A job interview can be stressful for even the most experienced interviewee. I hope that today's discussion will help you to feel better prepared and less anxious about interviews in the future. So, I'm ready to answer your questions.
Aside from having the right qualifications and experience, what qualities does an interviewer look for in a candidate?
Great question. You might be perfect for the job on paper, but if that was all the company was looking for, then there'd be no need for an interview. Think of the interview as an opportunity to present all of your other transferable skills. Things like time management, organization, communication, decision-making, problem-solving, and composure under pressure are all vital skills that are important in any job. For instance, turning up on time for your interview reflects good time management, while remaining calm in the face of a tricky question shows that you're able to keep your cool in stressful situations. If the opportunity arises, I'd also recommend talking about your hobbies and interests outside of work. This shows that you're a well-rounded person and gives you more of an identity in the interviewer's mind. Many companies receive hundreds of job applications, so you really need to make an impression and stand out from the crowd. These days, everyone has a university degree and previous work experience. But if you're also an amateur chef who volunteers at a dog shelter on the weekends, it's easier for the interviewer to think of you as a person and not just a number. Next question.
Why do interviewers sometimes ask questions that seem unrelated to the job? And how am I supposed to prepare for this?
Well, we've all had moments when we've struggled to answer an interviewer's question. This can be particularly frustrating if the question seems unrelated to the job. In today's competitive market, interviews are getting tougher and unconventional. Take the big software companies as an example. Always ahead of the curve, they pioneered unusual open-ended interview questions years ago, and many other companies have since followed suit. Once an interviewer has established that you have the right qualifications and adequate experience for the job, they'll want to get to know the real you. A question such as, if someone wrote a book about you, what would the title be, might seem completely irrelevant, but your answer can actually reveal a lot about you, how creative and imaginative a person you are, whether you can think outside the box, that kind of thing. Employers adopt these types of interviewing strategies to test your critical thinking skills and to evaluate how well you approach an unexpected challenge. Try not to let these types of questions catch you off guard. Take a moment to think about your answer and be honest. It might seem like a trick, but in fact it's an opportunity for you to show your personality. I think we have time for one more question.
What's the best way to deal with a question about how I handled a difficult situation in my previous job?
It's quite common for an interviewer to ask about a difficult past situation at work, but it's a question that people generally find really hard to answer. This question actually provides you with a great opportunity to prove how great a problem solver you are. Difficulties of one kind or another are always going to arise in the workplace. So your potential employer wants to get an idea of how you respond to trying situations. Whatever you do, don't get defensive or blame anyone else, or act as though you've never experienced any difficulties at work before. I suggest you think of an example prior to the interview so that you can prepare your answer. It can be something like a misunderstanding with a colleague or a tight deadline. Just make sure you describe how you dealt with it in a level-headed manner. Even if the story didn't have a happy ending, you missed the deadline, for example, don't be afraid to admit it. If you paint yourself as a hero, you might come across as arrogant and your story will seem unrealistic. Instead, focus on what the situation taught you and how, in hindsight, you would do things differently the next time you're faced with a similar scenario.
Thank you for your questions, and thank you, Sophie, for your invaluable advice. For more on this topic, remember to tune into our podcast this evening.